Hey everyone, Ryu here. Just wanted to go ahead and bring up something. Watch one of MGTOW University's videos, and it was about Sweden and them wanting to reduce cars and the reason why they want to reduce their cars. And I'm talking about the number of cars on the street. Now, I'm going to expand beyond that subject. Y'all should know this about me by now. I don't ever stick strictly in a subject because it ends up having kind of a branching effect, and I tend to get sidetracked going on the branches as opposed to staying on the trunk of the subject. So, let's dive into it. Now, Sweden has the first feminist government, or so they claim. But anywho, they have the first overtly feminist government. Now, they've already had one major fucking failing when applying, social justice and feminism to governmental policy. Well, they've had more than one, but they've had one major one, one that's been really, really, really publicized. And that is the whole snow plowing thing, where they sat there and said that the old snow plowing priorities were sexist and that sort of thing, because women tended to walk, their kids to school instead of driving their kids to school. So they prioritized the walkways, de-icing them, getting the snow off and all that sort of thing, as opposed to the roads. Now, anyone with even half of a brain in their head looked at that idea and said, well, that's not gonna fucking work. What about ambulances? What about police? What about any emergency service? They're gonna have a hard time getting through that fucking snow that's left on those roads for longer. They're gonna end up crashing because of the ice on those roads, because the roads aren't being de-iced. But, of course, feminism, right? Feminism doesn't listen to anyone who says anything against them. They just sit there and yell, well, you're just misogynistic. You just hate women. Well, what ended up happening? Oh, yeah, the number of broken bones went up fourfold. Something tells me car crashes went up significantly. People were put in danger because emergency vehicles couldn't get through the roads because of the snow. There were crimes that could have been stopped if police had been able to get there. The list goes on and on. And so, finally, they ended up, after making these people suffer for so long, going, well, maybe it was a bust. They didn't say, oh, well, the detractors were right. Oh, no. They can't do that. They can't admit that the misogynists and, the sexists and the bigots were actually fucking right. We're actually talking fucking sense. No, they can't admit that. But they're able to willing, oh, we went about it in the wrong way. Yeah, it's called you fucking change the shit based off of fucking non-evidence. You changed the policy based off of feelings instead of fact, instead of logic, instead of sitting there and looking and going, well, what's the reason for this policy? What's some negative effects that this would have? They didn't do that. Feminists don't do that. They sit there and they look at it and they're all like, well, we want this change, so it needs to fucking happen because we feel it needs to happen. Well, now, they're sitting there and saying, oh, well, we need to take more cars off of roads because men drive more than women. Well, if women choose to walk their kids to school instead of drive their kids to school, which was their main fucking thing as far as clearing that off, it was to go ahead and make it more convenient for the women. Fuck public safety. But taking more cars off the roads, the reason why they want to do that is because it's primarily men that drive in Sweden. Let me ask you something. Are they including taxi drivers? Are they including bus drivers in that statistic? Truck drivers? All the, everything from personal use to fucking corporate use. Are they including all that in there just like they did with the fucking pay gap? Where they sat there and decided that they were going to compare the the money earned by a fucking CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation to that of a fucking second week in barista? Is that what they're fucking doing here? Because it sure as hell seems like it. But they're sitting there and saying, when the men park those cars, it's taking up space at the detriment of women. That's right. Men aren't even considered to have a right to a parking space anymore. Therefore, they shouldn't have the right to a fucking car. And they're trying to sit there and seat it inside of the environmental thing, the basically the worldwide war on carbon. Now, here's the thing. If men end up having to walk everywhere, then that means they're going to be less efficient at work. It's going to take them longer to get to and from work. That means the women folk, in the traditional fucking couples, are going to have to take care of those kids for fucking longer. Because it's going to take their hubby more time to get to and from work. What about guys who have an exceedingly long drive, a long commute to work? Where in a car, it only takes them 30 fucking minutes or an hour. But on foot, it'll take them 2 hours to 3 hours to get to and from. In addition to having to brave the weather for much farther than what these women are doing to walk their offspring to school. From the house that the guy is paying for, that's close to the school that they're paying top fucking dollar for. Are they considering that? No, of course not. It's just men being evil and taking up space, right? Cars are the new man-spreading in Sweden. The premise is just as fucking ridiculous. And you get to see now what a feminist government looks like. Preferential treatment for women. Sorry about that. Something was going on down the street. I had to go ahead and take a look. But yeah, preferential treatment for women. Men being targeted specifically by government policy. Men losing the right to property. Men using the right to a convenience if women don't utilize it. Welcome to a feminist dystopia. We're seeing the decline of Sweden because feminism has actually fully taken over. Remember, when I bitch about feminism, I have my reasons. Do I think that every last thing that comes out of a feminist's mouth is pure fucking evil? No. Even radical feminists, every once in a while, when the stars align, can go ahead and make one good point. But your standard feminist, unfortunately, is becoming more radical by the day. Because they have more and more scrutinous purity tests. So, of course, something like Sweden was going to fucking happen once feminism reaches critical mass in a country. But Sweden gets to serve as the example of why feminists do not belong in government. Because, for one, feminism is cancer. It spreads like cancer. It spreads unchecked. Well, at least it did. Until the chemo that is MGTOW came along. I would say MRAs, but MRAs have proved fairly ineffective. Because unlike feminists, they're not willing to use the same fucking tactics. Unlike feminists, they didn't start from a situation where they were privileged. So, unfortunately, they were dead on arrival. But here's the situation. Sweden bending a governmental knee to feminism to the point to where the government itself became feminist is eating itself alive. It is becoming more and more totalitarian, more and more authoritarian by the day. They are starting to pass direct anti-male legislation. So that means, guys, if anyone from Sweden is watching this, if you know any guys in Sweden, forward this video to them. So maybe they'll go ahead and actually take a look around and figure out that maybe it's time to get the fuck out. Leave Sweden to its own devices. And I know uprooting and leaving a fucking country is hard as fuck. I get that. Well, unless you have brown skin and you just claim to be a migrant fleeing from war, even though the area that you're actually coming from has no war going on, making you an economic migrant, not someone seeking asylum from violence. But the thing is, guys in Sweden, it's time to fucking get up and get out. You gotta leave that shit behind. Wait for it to collapse and then go in and basically rebuild. That's the only way that this is gonna fucking go down well for you. If you stay, you will eventually become basically illegal just to exist. You're already becoming the fucking whipping boys. Even more so than modern day society has you. So, go ahead. Take a long, hard look. Look at the direction that Sweden is heading. Look at the blatantly anti-male rhetoric that is being spouted by your leader. If it's not one thing, it's another. But You are going to need to make a decision soon. Either stay there and risk losing any chance of being able to fucking leave. Risk losing your freedom at the drop of a hat. Or you can go ahead and leave. You can go to a country that it doesn't have a feminist government. One that will still, every once in a while, stand up for the rights of men. At least in some small way. Which is a lot better than what you got going on currently. Now, I'm pretty sure that at some point I'm going to get some white knight coming in and saying, well, women have been oppressed for blah, blah, blah. No, they haven't. They haven't. Looking throughout history, there are very few cultures that have actually oppressed women. There's only a couple of cultures that actually still truly oppress women. Now. And guess what? Those cultures are being welcomed in droves into your culture. At least they were. Until the women started complaining about, getting raped consistently. Your rape statistics basically tripling. But yeah. So, if you're coming on here trying to say, oh, well, women have been oppressed. No, they haven't. Because if you actually go ahead and take a good hard look at history, any freedoms, any rights that women have been denied in the past has been for their protection. And the thing is with the loss of those freedoms and rights was also no responsibility at that point. They've gained those freedoms and rights now without the responsibilities that go along with them. Men are still held responsible for them. There have been very, very few freedoms and rights where they've actually taken on any level of responsibility. And even those, the responsibility has been minimalized. So don't come onto my channel with that shit. I've already covered that before. I'm not going to cover it again. If you come onto my channel and that is your argument, you've already lost. This is just a warning to you about what's coming. Because everyone else can see the writing on the wall. Well, everyone with a brain. So, basically, non-social justice warriors, non-feminists. So, you can't come back and say that I never warned you. Because I'll sit there and point to this video and say, nope, I told you so. Have yourselves a good one, and I'll talk to y'all later.